Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say we're getting to the closing of the season 4, which is dedicated to the books that my mom introduced me to. I am Tanisha Brandon Felder, the host of Talking Books with Tanisha. Season 4 has been a dedication and it's an honoring of the books that my mom introduced me to or that I found like in her book box in the garage. Just a way to really just thank her for being such a model for me around literature and literacy. She passed away this year, and so um, I know that the things that she taught me are still with me, and I want to continue passing those things on. And one of those things was a love of reading. So I've really been trying to share some of those books with you all. I've shared some books from my childhood. I'm gonna share some books with you now, like from my like teenagehood, kind of older teenagehood, because these are the books that my mom had this big box of books. We moved a couple different times when we were growing up, and she would put her books in a box until she'd be able to find like a bookshelf for them. And there were some books that made it onto the bookshelf, and there's some books that never quite made it there, but there were books that she didn't want to get rid of. And those were the books that I would go into the garage and I would say, I really want to read something, but I don't know what to read. I would go through her book box and I would find these books that ended up being some of my very favorite books. And this is how I kind of moved from like reading my YA stories and my series into like actually reading kind of adult fiction, like mostly romantic fiction stories, friendship-based stories. This is how that introduction happened. So there's so many books I could choose from, but these are the 3 books I pulled off my shelf to kind of talk to you a little bit about because these books made a difference for me. And they're not in any particular order, but I am going to start with Danielle Steel because Danielle Steel, who is the author of The Promise, has like, it feels like she had a book out like almost every month at one point. Like there were just books that were always coming out. But she had her books that were kind of like her older, kind of what I call the foundational Danielle Steel, and then kind of her newer, more contemporary stories. And my mom had all the older ones. Like she had all the originals, like copies of those books. And The Promise was the very first Danielle Steel book I ever read that I found in her book box. It's a story about Nancy and Michael who are meant for each other, at least in the eyes of each other. His mom is rich and does not want to have anything to do with Nancy because Nancy is poor. And she wants to find a way to kind of tear them apart. They have an awful accident, and Michael comes out with a couple scrapes and a few broken bones, but Nancy's face is completely destroyed. And the mother, Michael's mother finds an opportunity to kind of divide them for sure. And she basically tells him, tells her, I'll pay for all of your plastic surgery. This is like way back, like in, it's like it's an older book. So it took place like in the late 70s, early 80s. I'll pay for all of your plastic surgery. Your face will be completely reconstructed. You will not look like yourself because you can't redo that. And if Michael finds you, he's meant to be. Nancy agrees to this, thinking that for sure Michael is going to find her. But unbeknownst to her, Michael's mother tells Michael that Nancy has died. So this is like a story about this promise they keep to always be together, to always find each other no matter what. And things are happening as like as Nancy's trying to figure out how to get used to like first being faceless and then like her face is kind of slowly starting to come together, and then Michael's kind of living in this space, like space of despair and desperation, and neither one of them realize that they don't know the full story about why they haven't been able to connect with each other. So will the promise stay true? Will they be able to reconnect if they promise each other? Like that's what the whole premise of The Promise is, and it was one of the best like introductions to Danielle Steel ever for me. I still read this book whenever I can because it was a really good story, and I think it's really I just really like how it's written. So it's very nostalgic for me. I think the other author that my mom and I both loved together, we read most of her books, was Terry McMillan. So Terry McMillan's first book was Waiting to Exhale. And she kind of came onto the scene, and if people needed her. They wanted like a Black author who was talking about Black women at that time and wanted someone who had a fresh kind of look on it. And Terry McMillan was able to provide that. She wrote many books, and most of her books have really strong Black women as like as the kind of the central characters. And it was really affirming for Black women. And my mom loved the books, and I started loving the books, and we would read them together, or she would read them first and then pass them on to me. Um, and it's one of those things that just always feel like a really special connection. Like we'd always kind of, wait for the next book to come out and we read it together. And like she still has books right now that she got from Terry, she has like, from Terry McMillan, that I would borrow from her shelf. Like they're literally still on her shelf right now. So Waiting to Excel is about four Black women who are friends, all very different, all looking for love, and how they find love is in very different paths and different ways. But they're waiting to just be able to say, like, I can stop having to do all the work. I just want to like breathe, Waiting to Exhale. And so it's been turned into a movie since then. It has an amazing soundtrack with lots of really great female artists. Um, but it's one of those books that I just found like we bonded over, and it was really important for us to have a model, for me to have my mom as a book model for me, and for Terry McMillan to be able to share these stories. So that's the second one. The third one, definitely Eric Jerome Dickey. My mom and I loved Eric Jerome Dickey, and he had a bunch of books, and he had books also just kind of like Danielle Steel, where he had kind of the earlier Eric Jerome Dickey, kind of like the way he wrote, and then later on he had a really different way in which he wrote. And I have to say my favorites were his earlier books. And one of the first books that he wrote was Friends and Lovers. And there's a series of these that they're all like, different people and everything, but they all kind of have the similar covers. And it's about relationships. It's about, friendships and like actual relationships with couples coming together. It's about making mistakes and like coming back from those mistakes. It's about finding love and then losing love. And he just has like an amazing way of telling those stories. So, Friends and Lovers is literally about a group of best friends that find each other, and they each begin kind of dating each other, and you just kind of hear the ins and outs. It's so silly. It's so much fun. It's really, it's very like, like very romantic and interesting. And most of his books took place in LA because that's where he was from. So there's lots of like really cultural references to that area and to that time period. Um, it's always fun to talk about the books that have made me even love reading even more. I feel like sometimes, we have really great authors right now, like contemporary authors that are happening right now and this year are like amazing. I have so many current books I'll be sharing for our summer dump that I give them all the books at one time and say, here, like make a stack and go through them for the whole summer. That'll be coming up too. But every now and then it's good to go back and find the authors that put so much energy into like helping us have a story to tell when we didn't always have those stories. And I think like these are really great examples of that. Um, as a person who also collects books, like I collect books to have my own personal library. I buy books to also give back to people, and I just gift books a lot too. And these are some of the books that have always like stayed in my own personal library. Like, these are the original copies that I have. You can tell because they're loved and like their covers are all frayed. But I love these books. And my mom introduced these books to me. So I wanted to share them with you. Danielle Steel, Eric Jerome Dickey, Terry McMillan, amazing authors. Stories are still available. You can even probably go like to the local like thrift store and find these books on the shelves, and they're worth the read, I promise you. Pay the 25 cents or the dollar, get the get the book and read it, and then pass it on to someone else so they can be introduced to these authors as well. Unfortunately, Eric Jerome Dickey did pass away a few years ago. So he's no longer currently writing books, but he has enough books to keep you busy. He was a very prolific author, and he wrote lots of different books. And so, keep these around. Introduce them to someone else, share them. If you like what you're seeing here on Talking Books with Tanisha, please push like and subscribe and share with other people. The idea is getting books in the hands of readers and getting hands on the books of people who don't even know they want to read yet. Just find the right story for the right person so they can continue reading. It matters, everyone. Like having a story that you relate to and connect to, it really does matter. So if nothing else, I hope one of these sparked your interest, but more than anything, just keep reading. And remember that if you're not sure what to read, hopefully one of these episodes that I've been sharing with you will encourage you and motivate you to find a story. If there's a book that you want to introduce to us, drop it into the comments. I'm excited to be with you. We have one more episode of season 4, and then we're going to wrap it up for this season and move into the summer season. I have a really fun surprise for you to premiere our summer season. So have a great day, everybody. Take care.